Okay, I think that we are ready to begin. Okay, so we are very lucky to have with us. We would like to welcome everyone to our very first Teens podcast. And we are really honored to have with us a very special friend, a classmate, and somebody who's actually been working with so many girls in the community and so many women in the community. She's a professional, a psychotherapist who has worked with so many camps and so many schools. So she really has her hand on the pulse. And so we're honored to have with us Devorie Levin today, who's going to really help us in navigating. Sometimes high school years could be a little tough. Devorie, we went through high school together, so we know. Some of you might be in a smaller school, and of course that's easier at times. Sometimes that could also have its own challenge. But for those who are in a larger school, obviously comes with its perks and its energy and all the highs that you have. But there's also the other element where things can get a little challenging. Devorie, I think about it sometimes where we sing the song to love a fellow Jew just like you. He may be far from me across the widest sea. Sometimes it's easier to love someone who you don't even know, who's across the sea, and to love them and care for them. But sometimes the girl who's sitting like right near you in class, or the person who's sitting right near you at lunch, I think that's the challenge, to actually know and to learn the art of how to love them. So hopefully today we're going to get that together. And first of all, if anyone's going to have any questions, we would always love to hear from you, later. But today, hopefully we could tackle this challenge where sometimes it could be a little bit difficult. I don't want to look like I'm too pushy making friends. I don't want to look like I'm too out there, but I can't be so passive. So hopefully we're going to get to learn that art a little bit. So Devorie, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'm going to throw you out some questions that girls have asked, and hopefully, you'll take it from there. So, sure. Number one is, what are the steps in making a good friend, and how to maintain friends that I already have? Which means, great. It's tough. It's a tough game, and I don't want to sound so vulnerable when I go over to a person and be like, "Could you be my friend?" So there's obviously other ways of sounding a little bit, more tactful. And a little bit more with it.
Yeah, we do that in pre-1A. When pre-1A, right. We can go with her. Do you want to be my friend? I'll give you a snack if you give me your snack. Yeah, but obviously that won't fly in the teenagehood, and we all have our sense of pride, and we want to, appear to be confident and have the friends. But at the same time, it is a skill. So first of all, I just want to commend you for starting this podcast. I mean, what an amazing topic! What an important one, especially because we all go through this, right? Me and you had this, like, we grew up together. We can so empathize and understand what the struggles are, right? But at the same time, we all go through it. And it's a real learning process where we only get stronger, and we learn ourselves to the degree where we can then also make everlasting relationships in our future, Mitzvah Shem. So it's important to invest in our relationships in the high school years. And that's why I would love so much to give the tips and tools so that, people can have that confidence and that feel good that I have someone in my life to talk to hang out with, right? So
it's funny, what you're saying, just for a minute. I think that, especially going through the system, like in second grade, we're already learning Paraglamet Bays, and we're like learning it by heart. I think all this knowledge we have inside of ourselves, and thank God for Torah, for sure, to give us the direction, and for sure Hasidus has totally taken it on a whole different element. We have like the tools in the sense that we're all one neshama, we're one body. We can like spit it out there, and I think the beauty and the reason why we're lucky to have you is because you're a mother, so you have teenage girls yourself. But you went through the school system, you learned Hasidus, we have this knowledge, and here you're just helping us to formulate what we know, just done a little bit with some professionalism that we can gain those tools. And like you said, so that these friendships will also help translate just relationships in general, relationships with our parents, relationships with a spouse, etc.
With our teachers, right? Yeah. It's a crucial thing to have. And like you said, of course, there's so many things we learn in Tanya and Chassidus, and it's all there. Like it's amazing how much we can find all the sources in Yiddishkeit, but then how do we actually practically implement it into our day-to-day lives? So I hope to combine the two together. Okay, so the first question that you asked is like, what are some tips of how to even make friends, right? Like we just, what do we do? So, it can sound really simple, but one of the things that I find very interesting is that simply reaching out, like, even as adults, we might go to a wedding sometimes and like, we know someone, but we're not so sure. Are we comfortable going to say hi to them? I'll only say hi if they say hi to me first. And each one is kind of playing this game. And it's almost like, let me just say hi. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? So reaching out and just being open and friendly is a huge step into already making yourself available for relationships, for friendships, as opposed to just waiting for someone to approach you, right?
It's interesting you say that, because I remember, especially at the kinnis, it could get very overwhelming for a lot of people. There's a lot of women. It's like there's 4,000 of them, and if someone's a little bit more shy, whoa, and especially those who are coming with their families already and their tight-knit friends, so you're sitting there and you're just overwhelmed. And I remember one year I decided, I'm like, I'm not sitting on a table that I know anybody. I want to just sit on a table that I actually know nobody, and I just want to experience for myself, more than the other person gaining a high. I'm sure I'm gonna gain so much. And I sat by a table of shluchas that were literally from around the world, spoke other languages, spoke in their broken English. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, why am I spending my night like this? I've gained so much from them. That's probably the most memorable night that I had. Each one of them were so special in their own right that if I would have been with my own little group or family, forget it. I would have never had that experience. So like what you're saying, just pick yourself up and, just reach out to someone and say hi. You're going to gain so much too, in addition to that.
That's so true. It's so true. And like you see, it applies even in adulthood, right? It just continues throughout our life. So, when it comes to, looking for new friends or making new friends, so it's kind of like taking, an initiative and saying, I can do this. And what's the worst thing that can happen? So I'll say hi and they won't say hi back. Okay. At the end of the day, I was the nice one. I reached out. If they want to make believe they didn't see me, that's on them, not on me. Right. So yeah. And when you told me about like going to another table, the next tip that I would recommend is asking questions, right? Oh, where are you from? What do you like to do? Right? Which shluchos are you in? Or, in regards to girls and their friends is like, what do you like to do after school? Right? What are your hobbies? So asking questions, right, shows that you're actually interested. I want to get to know you. I'm interested in you, right? So that's very important as well, because some girls ask me, so what do? I just come over to a girl and I just say, hi, my name is now what, right? So coming up with some general questions, right? Where are you from? Which school do you go to, right? If you're going to a new camp, what do you like to do, etc. Really lets the other person know, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you better. Okay. So that's, asking questions. Now, obviously, when you're going to ask questions, right, you also have to be a good listener to the answers. So that means that like, okay, now you just, throw out a whole bunch of questions showing I'm interested in you, and the person will start talking to you. You want to make sure you're actually paying attention and you're not scanning the room or the lunchroom to see, who else just walked in that I have to now make friends with or like to start a conversation with, right? If you're interested in someone, invest in that time and listen to their answers and be that, that good listener to show them, yeah, I'm not just asking, I really am interested and I want to know the answers. And
it's interesting.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is that, when you show interest and you ask questions and then you are actually listening, the person will reciprocate and be motivated to hear from you as well. And they'll ask you the questions. Oh, so what do you do after school, right? Oh, do you also like to go to exercise class? Oh, I know a great one. Why don't we go to this together tomorrow, right? So that's how conversation, that's how relationships really start blossoming.
So it's interesting. I like the fact that when you were saying about like in a lunchroom, I could totally relate, especially when you're in such a, there's so many girls and so much action, and you don't want to feel like you're missing out in some fun that's happening. So sometimes you
Exactly.
can feel like if I'm talking to one person for more than 5 seconds, then I'm missing out on something. But sometimes it's the quality, not just, the quantity. Like I said hi to, 100 girls in school, by lunchtime, but who did I actually have a conversation with? The answer was no one.
Exactly.
It's focusing on into that one person, and at the end of lunch I feel like, hey, I actually got to know a little bit this girl a little bit more than I did yesterday, so to say. um
Exactly. Right. That's exactly the point. So you're not just superficially saying hi to everyone and just trying to be a part of like a crowd, but you're actually learning to connect and to really show interest and to, and that's how we form closer relationships.
or sometimes they say the kid who's like the loudest is not necessarily the kid who has the friends. um it's something to reflect on, because I know that a lot of times it could be very overwhelming, and almost like there's a certain sense of jealousy. Like I wish I could be that kid who's
That's
like
right.
running around and everyone wants to be like them, and they look so popular and they look so cool and everything. And meanwhile, at the end of the day, you don't know what that actually, what that girl actually feels like. um Maybe she's just like rah rah to everybody, but she hasn't zoned into any one specific person either. And she doesn't have a good friend either. She looks like Miss Popular, but what does popular actually mean at the end of the day?
Right. So, so true. Exactly. So, yeah, we can have and that actually leads me to the next step of like, how do I go from just being superficial friends, right, to kind of being more um, closer friends, right? Because, when we look at the different types of friends we can have our acquaintances, right, which is just the hi bye. We see each other in the lunchroom, we see each other in our classes. We don't have much to do with each other, right? And then we have the next step, which is friends, like my group or the one on ones that I start having with someone. And then we actually have the next level, which is getting really that close friend, right? That super, super close friend. And I know one of the questions that came up was, what kind of friend is important to have, right? Like, how many friends do I need? That's not really the question, is the quality of the type of friends that I have, right? So, how does one go from getting closer to someone, right? From instead of just being the rah rah or just superficial hi and bye, how do we actually become closer to form that stronger relationship? And I think that's another very important, tool to keep in mind, is that we can't, if we're just going to stay superficial all the time and we're just hanging out together and we're just like, meeting up for lunch, that's good, right? We can all have that. That's great. But if we want something more meaningful, the next thing is to really take a risk. And what I mean by that is that, you know, many of us are afraid of rejection, right? We're afraid. Maybe she's not interested in me. Maybe if I tell her too much about myself, she'll get scared off and, I'm going to lose her. So it's like that balance, right? That dance of how much do I share? How much do I ask questions about her? Because hey, she'll ask me those questions. Am I prepared to answer? Right? So if we're not ready to take the risk of being a little vulnerable and kind of being a little bit more personal, you will never shift from that regular friend to that really close friend. So when I say taking a risk, it could mean, you're not going to start off by telling her your deepest, darkest secrets, right? You're still strangers. You're just getting to know her. Like you just start a conversation in school for the last couple of days. But like choosing something really small, like, you know, maybe something, a personal interest that you have that you don't really just share with anyone, right? And when you're able to show her that, like, I want you to get to know me on a deeper level, and I'm going to trust you with this information. That makes the other person feel like, wow, she just told me something that she probably didn't just share with any random girl in the lunchroom, right? Or in the classroom. She actually is choosing me to share something so that I can get to know her better and that she trusts me. And then usually the person wants to trust them back, and then they share something, right? And that's how we go from being regular friends to closer friends, right? And again, why is it a risk? Because what's the worst thing that can happen? If let's say you did share something and she like makes fun of it, or she like goes and, oh my God, to the next girl, you can hear what she just told me, right? Then you know she's not the
Not
right
the friend
friend,
you want.
right? Exactly. So it is a risk. And that's why we do take the smaller risks at first until you feel you both are trusting each other, and it just gets deeper and deeper from there.
Do you think like asking her, do you want to take a walk after school type of thing, is that making yourself a little too vulnerable? Um,
Actually, do you think that's too risky? I don't think so. Because what's the worst thing she can say? She can just say, oh, I already had plans, or I'm rushing to an appointment. So, do you know what I mean? Like,
how do you read between the lines if she says, I have an appointment, where she's trying to get off my back and she doesn't want me to ask that question again, versus she really has an appointment, but ask tomorrow and try again.
right. Notice you're really thinking like a teenager. It's so true, because we right away want to assume, oh, that was a rejection, or, oh, she's not interested in me, right?
For analyzing.
And we start over analyzing, and we start like questioning ourselves. Maybe I'm too imposing, or maybe she really doesn't like me, so I'm not going to ask again. But what about giving her the benefit of the doubt? Like, yeah, it could be she really had other plans, and I just threw out, I want to go for a walk. So try at first not to take things so personally, right? Don't jump to conclusions. And of course, you can try again and see what happens the next time. If it's a pattern and it keeps happening, all right, then it's time to question if she's really the right friend to pursue,
So
right?
if you see that 2, 3 times, she keeps giving excuses, maybe that's a sign, like, or if she says like, honestly, I would really love to. I had tomorrow, I have something, but maybe we could do it Monday. That would be another sign that like, okay, she really is actually interested, but
Exactly.
she's giving me other alternatives, so to say. Or maybe
That's
on the spot, would it be okay if she says, I have an appointment tomorrow? Okay, I'm making myself vulnerable by saying, do you think Monday would work? If I keep seeing that she's pushing off each time I'm asking, then it's like, okay, maybe it's, she really is trying to say no in a nice way type of thing.
exactly. So you're right. There is a part of it that we kind of have to read between the lines, but I wouldn't do that after the first time. If it continuously happens, then it's time to look back and say, I did my part. I reached out. I tried a couple of times. She's not showing interest. She's not reciprocating. She's not texting me back. I'll try to move on. It hurts. We're not going to deny the fact that, a little bit of rejection or that feeling can really feel icky. Nobody wants to feel that. But if
Right.
we don't try, we will never know, right?
Right.
Because it could actually turn out into a beautiful relationship and a great friendship.
Right. What do you think about when there's, especially so much of social life is the groups and peers and cliques, and I I guess it would be one of two things. Either I have some nice, good friends, but they're individual friends and they're not a group in itself, or I'm part of a clique, I'm part of a group, but I don't really have like one solid friend that I'm really like, good with, that I, will actually pick up the phone and one-on-one and have really long conversations with. Do you think one is better than the other, or they're both needed, they're both important, or what would the pros and cons, or,
Right.
or it is
So
what it is, it's everyone I'm part of.
right. No, so I think this kind of ties back to what we were just talking about. There are different types of friends. We will have the friends that we would like to chill with. We would have the friends that we like to study with. We'll have the friends that we would like to be more, doing activities with, because we have similar hobbies. So we'll go to an exercise class together. And then we'll have the friends that we want to trust, right? So we kind of need a little bit of both, right? To be part of a bigger sense of something. That's always nice, so that we can go out shopping together. We can go to camps together. We can go, when it's time to go to Shabbaton, we have our nice group of friends, right? But I want to make sure to add in this is that even though you're part of, let's say, a group, it doesn't mean they're your only friends, and that you don't have the ability to reach out and still make a close friend from another group. That's totally fine and acceptable.
Right.
I'll
It's
never
actually
forget.
funny.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, I remember from my times, like if you were too part of too many different things, it was like, so who are you friends with? Either you're friends with us or you're friends with them. And I
Well,
used to
I
wonder,
think
like,
that's still the same. I think that's still the same, Devorie.
oh
You
yeah.
know,
So I would always
yeah,
question, and I would be like, why can't I be friends with you guys and with her from the other group? Like, why is it a contradiction?
I think girls look at it as a contradiction, which they shouldn't. And maybe that's why we're here, for the one who's looking for a friend and for the one who's trying to quote unquote create themselves, thinking that they're the machers of a group. I think both have to hear this, that you could, and not only you could, but you should know that, you're part of a group, but you could be friends with other people. And you
That's
should
right.
be friends with other people. Like, imagine if everyone just stuck in little clans, like little mice with each other. What would the world look like? I mean, we gain so much from intermingling with different kinds of friends. Maybe they're not exactly on your same Chassidischkeit level, or but they're great for studying together. There's a beauty of getting to know other girls and other things that they have to offer, and not just the same 5, 6, whatever it is, girls. Because those are that's the group that gives you your security, as if like, you got this and now you got heaven. Good. It's
I'm so
important to have a group.
right. I'm so sorry. I see that I keep getting a call in. Let me see if I can stop that.
No problem.
Okay. Let me know. Okay, we're back on.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, no, like you're saying, I think it's important. Like, I remember I used to have girls I used to go shopping with, and they were totally not the same girls that I used to necessarily sit in class with. And then
That's
there were the
right.
girls I used to study with, because they were either they were really smart, and so I wanted to, learn from them, or maybe I would be learning with someone else, so it would be a different dynamic of a type of, studying dynamic, so to say. But that was the beauty. That's how you get to know your grade a little bit more than just opening yourself up. Then, if you want to go to school of 5 girls, go to school of 5 girls, stick with those 5 people and homeschool each other. The beauty that you have a larger pool is so that you should actually get to know them and get to bond with them in different shapes and forms. But
That's
like you
right.
say, there is something to it where I'm part of a group, because at the end of the day, when summer is going to come, or when, vacations are happening, I don't want to feel like that, I guess the word is floater that they use.
Right. Right.
I'm just like floating everywhere. I'm friends with I think I hear this a lot. I'm friends with a lot of people, but I'm friends with no one. Like, I'm not
Mm,
part of a group, like I'm friends with everyone, but I'm a floater. How would you tackle that? Just
right. So first of all, look at it as, wow, I have many options, right? So like, if this group is going to one camp and that group's going to another, and I kind of can connect with either one, I have just more options, right?
I'm connecting with like one of the girls. I'm not connecting with all the
The
groups
whole
as a
group,
group.
right?
Yeah, then I'll be
So,
like friends with everyone.
right. So again, it's not that you must have your group. Otherwise, you're like, something's wrong with you. You could, like you said, have some connections with different people from different groups. And then if you want to be, let's say, included, let's say, in their summer plans, then you would have to tell that good friend of yours and say, hey, this summer I would love to spend time with you and your friends, right? So like, let's make it happen, right? You have to like express yourself and reach out and tell her, I would love to hang out with you in, the month of July or August. And if she says, oh, we already have our group set up, I'm so sorry, then at least, oh, I'll go to my other friend from my other group and see what she's doing, right?
How would you feel when they tell you that? Like, is that a feeling of rejection? Like, why didn't you ask me? Why didn't you include me? I mean, I'm sure it happens all the time.
Again,
You know,
we're falling into that trap of
same dress,
overanalyzing and overthinking,
right?
and it's really not a helpful thought if you think about it, right? Where's that gonna take you? So now I'm rejected. Now
Right,
nobody wants me. That
right,
means I shouldn't bother asking anybody else.
right. So I for sure
Just
I
the
have to ask.
opposite.
Yeah. So for sure
Right.
I have to ask other people. But how do I look at that girl who I look at and I'm like, why didn't you reach out to me? Why didn't you ask me? Like, that hurt. And now I'm supposed to keep being your friend. What kind of friend is
So
that?
excellent question. And I definitely have seen that happen a lot. But exactly what you just did by speaking to her and letting her know, I'll be okay. I'll find someone else to go with, but I am a little hurt that you didn't even give me the option. You didn't even tell me or ask me, would you want to join us for the summer? As a good friend, I would expect that from you, right? So just expressing your feelings and letting her know so that hopefully the next time it doesn't happen. And it doesn't mean you're like the neb now because, oh, poor you. Now you have to find someone else. You're showing her it's okay. I'll find my other group. It's okay. But just know that for the future, I would love for you to ask me first and give me the option.
And you're saying that if that would happen a couple of times, then you kind of have a little antennas like, okay, maybe she actually is not really a good friend.
Exactly. Maybe it's time to disconnect and recognize that, you know what, we're not as close as we thought we are, or as I thought we are,
Or as I hoped that I
or as
was.
I hoped we should be. So maybe I'll
Right.
just count her as a regular friend to hang out with, but I will invest my time and energy in someone that I can see it being more, realistic for the future, and like a really close friend that
So
is
don't be
mutual.
insulted. Don't be insulted. Like, just kind of take it in stride, say your feelings of how you felt
Honestly,
about it.
when you say don't be insulted, I almost feel like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to be
Of
insulted.
course you're
So
insulted. You're right. You're
right,
right.
we
Yeah.
we can't
Sorry.
we can't deny the fact that it hurts.
It
It
hurts.
definitely will hurt.
It hurts.
But if you can also recognize that, you know what, better now than later, that I was always hoping that she's going to be my best friend. Better I learn now that, you know what, I also have to spread my wings more and get to know other girls so that I can get closer mutually, that it's a two-way street with somebody else.
Right. Right. It can't constantly be this one-way relationship that I'm trying to build. At some point, I'm going to realize that, something's off and
That's right.
try to kind of move on type of thing.
That's right. And again, without knocking yourself or making it all about you or something's wrong with you, right? Because it could be just her own issue, or she just is busy running after a different type of people. And you know what? It doesn't really affect you or reflect who you are as a person. It's just different.
Right. 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 And keep trying a couple of times, but if you see that it keeps happening and there's a pattern to it, then just, probably this person is not your best of friend that you're meant to, you know, be spending a summer with or a vacation with or whatever else it is. Like you tried, you worked out. What about when there's these tight cliques that they're just really tight on each other and
So
since,
before I answer,
since first grade.
right. So before I answer that, I actually wanted to add one more thing in regards to what you just mentioned. In regards to if the friend, right, if it was a good, it happens sometimes that even good close friends can sometimes not spend the summer together. But you will be reinforced and you will know that it actually is a good friendship, that even when you're apart, right, even when you end up with a different group of friends and she's with a different group of friends, you guys are still in touch. You guys can still, call each other when you have off times and like, hey, how's it going by you, right? It can also validate and reinforce that, oh, we really are still good friends, even if we didn't hang out this summer together. So I think that's very important, because sometimes, hashgacha pratis, things just don't work out the way we hoped it would work out. But it doesn't mean that, oh, now we're never friends again because she spent her summer with a totally different crowd and I didn't go.
And like you're saying, it's not a marriage where, the same girl or the same group, everything, everywhere, all the time. It's okay, and it's probably healthy to branch out at different times and experience different experiences with different people. And if you like you mentioned about the Shabbaton, I'm in a room with other girls, not with the same girls all the time. Like it's healthy for myself to branch out. Sure, obviously the more confident I get, the more I can appreciate that. But even to reflect on it and realize like it's to my benefit that I don't have to stick with the same person or group every time, all the time, everywhere, just so that it looks like, I have a group of friends.
And
It's a
if your friend still stays by you, you know that is a true friend. She's not threatened by you being in another room with someone else for a Shabbos, right? For one night, she still is my friend. It just reinforces the closeness that we really have and the trust that we have. And it didn't affect our relationship. It's totally fine, right?
right, right. And when they start getting nitty gritty and in detail with that, like, oh, why didn't you hang out with us? That's probably a problematic on the friends element, where it's like, you don't have me trapped down that I can't meet or speak to any other people over here. Like that's, what kind of friend is that? What kind of friend?
Exactly. Right. It sounds a little bit controlling, right? And that's another whole topic within itself, which we can definitely delve into how to deal with that. But it's really coming from a place of insecurity, meaning she feels threatened that if you're only with that group on Shabbos and you barely made an effort, which by the way, you shouldn't do that also, right? You can still say hi, bye, and like reconnect with everyone while you're still making new friends. But if she feels that like, oh, you just dumped her and it's coming from her own insecurity sometimes. So just recognize that. And sometimes you'll have to have a discussion after to reassure her, oh, we're still friends. I still consider you a great friend. And yes, I spend Shabbos with the other girls in the other room, but that doesn't take away from our friendship.
Right. Beautiful. Now, what about like in, I guess talking to on the opposite end, the one who's the more confident one, the ringleader of the group. And sometimes, like we mentioned, the rah-rah girl doesn't necessarily mean she's the ringleader. Sometimes it looks like she's the ringleader, but the girl who is more confident and is comfortable in her skin and is able to make friends and, a little easier. What can we tell those girls? The one who's not necessarily struggling socially as much, which is okay if you are, and it's healthy, and it's like you gave your introduction, like it's part of life and it teaches us relationships, and it's only going to, the more we work on our relationships with our friends, the healthier it's going to be for any relationship in life. So that's a good thing either way. It's a success either way. But the one who's not having as much of a struggle, she's, either easygoing and whoever she's talking to is fine, or she already is comfortable. She has her group since first grade and she's just fine. What can we give that girl something to be in tune about to the other girls that are around her, to make her more sensitive to those, to girls that can use more help or a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a great question. It comes up a lot, right? So first of all, let me just differentiate between group and clique, right? The minute we say the word clique, it's a little bit more of a negative connotation, and it's more of like an exclusive, like it's just us and we're not including anyone else. Okay. That is not healthy, right?
Right.
Because again, the more we get to know people, the more we include others, we learn from each other, it'll only benefit ourselves.
Exactly.
However, is it okay to be part of a group? The answer is, of course. Of course, you can have a group of friends, but that doesn't mean that we can't also include others within it, right? So, for example, if let's say, I have a friend that I'm making a party for, so I'm going to invite my group, but you know what? Let me also look out for someone else that might be able to join and say, hey, we're celebrating X, Y, and Z's birthday. Would you like to join us, right? It won't take away from the party if you brought in someone from, maybe she's not so close to, to the whole group, but she does have shaykhs to that girl. Yeah, it's okay to bring her in, right? It won't take away from the group. So for the leader or for the person that has it so easy, it's okay or it should be a good thing for her to look at and say, you know what? Yes, we're going to have the regular group of girls that we always hang out with, but let's also try to include others as well. Right?
Or by recess, lunch. I mean, I'm sure
Correct.
these situations come up all the time. Like you're talking in a circle, open up the circle a little bit, widen
That's
it up.
right.
Don't make someone uncomfortable to want to join. Like be sensitive, be in tune. It's just the menschlich thing to do, where be in tune that if there's someone that's wandering the hallways or going to the water fountain 5 times over and she's not thirsty anymore, there's a reason why she's going to the water fountain. Be in tune to that girl and open up your circle for her. And,
Right.
I think like
And
we were saying,
especially, yeah, and I think also especially a lot of times, like you notice a girl just hanging around the group and just like trying to listen, and she doesn't know really how to interject because she might be embarrassed or she might not want to impose. So if you see that, you can say, include her, right? Oh yeah, we were just talking about this. What do you think about that, right? Try to help her make herself comfortable within that social scene at the moment, right? You'll do wonders for that person.
like you were saying, like how, in second grade, we say, hey, you want some chips and you'll be my friend, right? And as you get older, there's different, we increase in our maturity, social maturity. Even when it comes to like bullying, right? So when you're kids, you use your words or, you're excluding someone. Sometimes when a girl just comes into a circle and then all of a sudden the conversation just stopped and it's like silence. Mm-hmm. Like that's, teenage version of bullying in an indirect way, so to say, where you just made someone really uncomfortable. And it's like, why would you do that? you know, they're a person just like you. Put yourself in the shoes. Imagine if you came somewhere and all of a sudden silence, you feel really dumb. Like, you know,
Right,
so those
right.
are things like you're saying, just to be in tuned that when there are people around, or if it's a girl who keeps coming and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's so annoying. Well, maybe she's reaching out because she's asking for help. And how terrible is it that you included someone else in your circle that you're not the best of friends, and she's not the same exact style as you, and she's not the same exact whatever social circle that you're in, but she needs you. The fact that she keeps coming to the circle means that she's asking for help in the nicest way that you could ask it.
And it doesn't mean, right? Don't make the assumption that, oh, because I included her now this one time or this one party, suddenly now we're best friends. It doesn't mean that. I think that's the biggest fear. I might give her the wrong message. If I
Right.
include her once,
Right.
suddenly she'll always want to be with
Right.
us.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way, right? We can say this time, we're taking this girl out for her birthday. You're welcome to join. But this time, it's going to be more of those kind of girls, and just not chifas. It's, what I'm saying. Like you don't have to. Of course, you should if you can. But if it
Right.
really doesn't make sense, or it'll change the whole dynamic, don't feel like now I'm trapped and I always have to, have her by my side.
Each mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael is in its own right, and you don't have to worry about the mitzvah tomorrow. If I
Right.
can help someone today, let's do that today.
And what else you can do is, if you're afraid of her becoming too dependent on you, is giving her like the encouragement to say, why don't you go reach out to those girls, right? Why don't you ask them what they're doing for the summer, right? Like to give her like that confidence or that reassurance that, yeah, it didn't work out for us this time, but I'm sure, if you ask someone else, they would be open to it. So like kind of giving her the courage would be another helpful thing that the popular girl can do if she, for whatever reason, can't be the one to do it for her.
What about if you find out that someone's talking behind your back, you know, and that hurts? What would you suggest?
What if someone talks behind my back? Right. So again, my first instinct is let's not do that negative cycling, right? Oh my God, that one's talking behind me, nobody likes me. Because again, once we get into that negative cycle, we
Right.
we just get very down on ourselves, right? Um, it could happen. I'm sure it's happened many, many times. You always have to also first check out and see where's this coming from, right? Is the person that's repeating this actually saying the truth, right? Sometimes people like to embellish things. Sometimes, unfortunately, girls like to separate two good friends. So they'll say, "Oh, do you know what that girl said about you?" Which obviously is not okay. So take things, into perspective and see where does the information come from before I make any assumptions or jump to conclusions, right?
Right.
And then I would say, if it really is coming from a good friend, I would approach that friend and say, hey, it got back to me that you said X, Y, and Z about me. What's that about? Right? Like, why don't you ask me straight up, or why don't we have that discussion instead of talking about me? Come and tell me what you feel. Like if I hurt you, or if, I did something wrong to you, I would so better appreciate if you came to talk to me directly.
And that's excellent. And I think it's definitely teaching tools of communication, period. Because,
That's
if you're
right.
ever gonna have an issue in life, whether it's with a teacher, whether it's with a, friend, obviously, a spouse, you're gonna need those tools of how to just be open and honest and direct. What if the person starts like, no, not really, I didn't really mean that. That's not really, and they start like just kind of.
Hemming and hawing.
Yeah, and
Right.
you're like, if a person says, you're right, I really apologize, I'm sorry, that was a success conversation, right? I put myself out there, I made myself vulnerable, I opened myself up, I said, I was uncomfortable, it hurt me, and the other person said, I'm sorry, and we both grew from the experience, and we won't do it again. But when it's not always such a success, it's like, nah, and they start like, kind of shirking out of what they did, then, I'm not sure how much actually got taught from that conversation.
You know
Um,
what? She might not admit it that she was wrong, but she heard you. And that's what's important. And you were assertive and you shared how you felt. So even if she won't apologize right then and there, it might take her a little bit more time to seep in and to recognize it. She might come back and apologize. She might not. But at least you did your part, right? And again, it's going to give you that gauge of how close or how much can I trust this girl, and maybe, you know, she's not as close as I thought she is to me.
So if there's a pattern that I keep having that type of conversation where they keep like yanking out of that type of, you know, responsibility and up, you know, and taking responsibility for what they said or did, they keep trying to shirk out of it, it's probably not the person that's really meant for me at the end of the day. Is that what you're
Again,
saying?
we can be friends, right? But
Right.
we might not be super close, right? And
Right.
that, again, yes, it's painful when it happens, but it does, unfortunately, right? And we only get stronger and we grow from each time, you know, from these experiences, hopefully, as long as we don't fall into that self-blame, something's wrong with me, nobody likes me, right? And when we start doing that whole negative self-talk, then we are really jeopardizing ourselves from being friendly, because what ends up happening is that we might isolate ourselves and say, nobody likes me, nobody cares for me, why am I even going to the Shabbaton, I might as well just stay home. And then you lose out, right?
Becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it definitely becomes a vicious cycle. And then because you didn't go to the Shabbaton, you lost out on opportunities,
And you lost out on
right?
friends, and you lost out on, you know.
Other opportunities, exactly.
Right. Right. Wow. Devorie, this is awesome. This is really, really great. And I have no doubt that any girl listening to this can and will be gaining so much and growing so much from it. And especially like we said in the beginning, as you know, as Jews and specifically as Hasidim, like the fact that, you know, we could be unified together, and this is what brings the greatest nachas to Hashem. This is what brings the greatest nachas to the Rebbe when he sees that his children are unified. You know, Basi Lagani, the Rebbe just shared stories of Ahavas Yisrael. I mean,
That's
it
right.
was the basics of what we have. And, you know, as Hasidim, we got to get this one down pat for ourselves, obviously, and ultimately for the greater cause that it's going to be Ahavas Yisrael that's going to bring Mashiach, right? We hear this in first grade,
100%.
second grade, but sometimes it's hard to practice that, and it takes work, and it's a vaida, but it's you know, it's not about loving the C-team kid who comes for the Shabbaton and, you know, over the weekend and amazing. I spoke to them and I had conversations with them. Those are easy people to talk to. Not easy
Right.
for everyone, but those are the
Right.
easier people to talk to. It's the people who you know, who I'm actually day to day living with near my class. And I hope that we all can take to heart, whether it's the person who I have to open my circle to, or whether it's the person who I have to work a little bit more on myself to become that better friend, that we're all, you know, we're in this together. And if we can all gain one little extra skill in being that better friend for another, and gaining skills to becoming a better friend for myself, the world would be a happier, healthier place. And it's, you know, it's friends are, you know, friends are, look, definitely high school I think is different than, you know, married life. Friendship takes on a different place. The friends that
It's
you
a
had in high
different,
school,
right. Will
the friends that you
change,
had in high
right?
school are not the friends that you have in seminary, and vice versa. It's that the friends that you have in seminary are not the ones that you have in necessarily once you're married, but these are all people that you grow with and help build and shape you for who you are. So every
Exactly.
stage in life, that's important for what it is. And
Exactly.
the more we
Exactly.
can work on ourselves and build that skill, it's a skill that we're learning for life. So,
100%.
you know, so
Couldn't have said it
really,
better myself.
well, Devorie, I'm so glad that you really got to join us. And, you know, maybe you want to share your contact info, because we are lucky to have Devorie living in Crown Heights. So for those girls that, you know, want to reach out, she, you know, she talks to so many girls in school, and all the schools actually, all the maestras that are around. She deals with so many of them. She has her hands on the pulse. So if you need any, you know, little push or help, or, you know, a little cheerleading, she could be there to help you. So Devorie, maybe if you want to share your contact
Sure.
info,
Sure.
you know, you feel free to do that.
I'm welcoming any questions or emails. If anyone wants to like ask something more specific, I'd be happy to respond. Or we can actually compile a list eventually and then maybe create another podcast of just answering those specific questions, right? It could be anonymous, obviously. But again, you can reach me at Devorie11 LMHC at gmail.com. Again, it's Devorie11 LMHC, which stands for Licensed Mental Health Counselor at gmail.com. I know it sounds pretty scary, but it's just letters. It's fine. Um, yeah, and if you need any other further assistance and you wanted to contact me directly, then we can exchange more information via email.
Perfect. And I think, Devorie, that if somebody needs a little extra, help in something, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. And it doesn't mean that I have to
Absolutely
be
not.
in therapy forever. And it doesn't mean that, if I'm going to come speak to you, that means that all my friends are going to know that I come to you. So I think that's important to, to just clarify.
Good
Sometimes I
point.
just
Good point.
have a
Yeah.
struggle, and it's 1 or 2 sessions that can just help things out, that just
Clarify. Yeah.
clarify.
Yeah.
And it could be once or twice, and I'm good to continue on my journey of life. So
That's
I don't
right.
have to be stuck that this is like, oh my gosh, if I'm speaking to, a therapist, these are scary words. This is not scary words. This is just someone who's coaching you and helping you and giving you the professional guidance that you can have to continue on in being the best you that you can be and the best chassid that you can be, to
That's
finally
right.
bring Mashiach.
That's right. And I just want to add to that it doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist. A mashpia can do a great job too, right? It's just that a mashpia is limited into, maybe if there is more deeper things going on, she might not be able to have the professional guidance. So, when we're talking about just coaching or just to give some guidance in navigating the school system or the social life, by all means, a mashpia is a wonderful person to turn to as well. A therapist can add to that by giving also, some insight into the way, if there's any insecurities coming up or there's family dynamics showing up and, it's playing itself out in the friends, that's where you might want to invest in a little bit more of a professional advice. But teachers, mashpiyas, older counselors, those are all great resources to help in general for like those kind of social things.
And I think that's an excellent point, and thank you. And I ironically, and I think that's the beauty, Devorie, hearing it from you, because ironically, sometimes you feel like a professional has an agenda, come back to me and have sessions, and but you get all worlds, and you're actually part of all the worlds, which means to say that a mashpia, is there, and the Rebbe said a selach harav, that a person should get it. It's a bakasha nafshis, and it's the smartest thing that you can get for yourself. You're basically you're hiring someone basically for free to coach you along in the questions and the challenges that you have. And I think where probably a professional kicks in, and where you have both elements, but where a professional kicks in your case as well, is that, like you said, if there's somebody who has a little bit more, that they need to dig into and just dig deep a little deeper. Why is it that I'm so shy? How can I break that? An average mashpia won't necessarily have those tools to be able to get into the psyche of the person,
Exactly.
and help them out. And to get the best of both worlds, where you have a Lubavitcher who has the values of Torah and Chassidus, and who's licensed to do that, is you're a gift. And I hope that people are able to tap into you if they need that extra professional touch. So
thank you so much, Yehudis. I think it was a big honor to be here. And yeah, it's something that even as adults, we still sometimes have these similar struggles, and you're totally normal if you do. It's just learning how to navigate it and become the better you. So
awesome.
Good luck.
Awesome. Thank you, Devorie. We should all march together with all the groups that join as one, all the friends that join as one, and we should all be in Yerushalayim. We should be joining together in the Beis HaMikdash with the Rebbe, and he'll be so proud with all the Avos Yisrael that we've acquired and learned and actually put into action. So thank you, l'chaim, to all you girls, and looking forward to another session.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. No, no, it's perfect. I mean, I'm happy you guys that the group working together and whatnot, but no, it was great. It was great. Like, I see that's the beauty. I see like a concept in general, like you don't have to be super. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, but it's great. Like you're perfect. It's a big use. Absolutely. And I was thinking of girls who are like coming and asking these type of things, like you hear in so many industries and forums, which is makes it, I wouldn't say the word is easy, but like, yeah, this is real life, you know? Oh, which one? I mean, like,